Alright guys, we have quite the stacked video for you today. We have not one, not two, but three easy A's in this one video. Of course, the spotlight is on AGL Ginyu, a unit that I've never pulled a dupe in. Still at 55%. So we're going to see some very raw output from him. He is level 10 links, but of course alongside him, which I'm so glad they did this, they also easy aid the Jace and Berta, who are not quite level 10 links, but are rainbowed. And the same with Rakum and Goldo. Not quite level 10 links, but rainbowed. So I said a very stacked video for you today. No 220 lead for Ginyu, unfortunately, because the 220 lead he does have, I do not have, which is Tau. And I didn't have the facilities to make a 200% lead, 220 lead, 170 lead, 220 lead. So this is the best I could come up with, which was a 170 lead and 200% lead. And even then, the team isn't looking overly healthy, we'll say. So, we do have the Jace and Berta here, also with the friend Ginyu. So, that means we're getting double the support. We're getting the Ginyu Force support from the friend Ginyu, giving mine key +1, 60% attack and defense, and 20% chance to crit, along with mine giving it to the friend Ginyu and also the Jace and Berta. And then because I'm going to put Jace and Berta in slot 1, not only are they going to give out Space Traveling Warriors or Special Pose support with key +3, 40% attack and defense. Since it's before they receive an attack, it's going to be all allies 30% attack and defense for 2 turns on top of all of that support, and also the all allies attack and defense by 20% for 1 turn on SA effect. So a lot of support right now. So Ginyu is sitting on a 674k attack stat, 323k defense. We're going to get some extra support from Jace and Berta as well. Ginyu is starting with 200% attack and defense. Don't forget, we do have a 50% chance of an additional super. He is stacking 30% defense and also raising attack by 30% just for 1 turn. I still believe the 50% chance should be 70. So of course, Jace and Berta aren't really putting out damage, but they're not here to deal damage. They're here just for their amazing support. But I think that built-in additional should be a 70% chance. Unless the Ginyu Force conditional additional was guaranteed, then that can stay at 50. I mean, he's starting at 18.96, which is really good. I mean, there is quite a bit of support. I mean, naturally, you are going to run Ginyu with Jace and Berta and Rakum and Goldo. So, majority of the time, you are going to have all that support anyway, because naturally, as I said, you will run them together. Only the two super attacks, which I mean, kind of to be expected, considering I have no dupes. So he has very little additional when it comes to the potential system. And that is with skill orbs as well. I think he's got 8 additional in total. He does start with a base damage reduction of 20%. When attacking with 12 or more ki, Ginyu then gets 150 attack and defense. Then per Ginyu Force category ally on the team, which if you don't have all of these other Ginyu Force EZAs, also the Int LR, you're kind of missing out on this full boost. Because per Ginyu Force category ally goes all the way up to 100% attack and defense, and it's 20% per. So if you do run dual Ginyus, you can kind of find almost a workaround there. But for example, for me right now, we're getting 20% for Rakum and Goldo, Jace and Berta, the friend Ginyu. It doesn't say self-excluded, so that should also include our Ginyu. So we've got primarily all of it. We've got 80% attack and defense. We are missing the 20% because we don't have another Ginyu Force unit that's good enough in this meta to be ran. Unless maybe you run the Int LR if you do have them. However, if you don't run dual Ginyus, which for those of you who have Tau, you probably won't, then you'll have even less per Ginyu Force ally. But I mean, from what I'm seeing, numbers-wise, from what I'm seeing Ginyu put out on that first turn, maybe you don't need to have that full boost. It's just nice to have. But I mean, regardless, you don't want to miss out on 100% attack and defense. And to be fair, we do have the majority. So maybe that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be if we did miss out on some stats there. Then when there is another Ginyu Force category ally on the team, Ginyu's attacks become effective against all types, and he has a 50% chance of an additional super. And then this is where I think they kind of held back, and it just doesn't make sense to me, because you have Kale and Caulifla, who are way less restricted because they have way more versatility when it comes to teams and team building and who they can work with than Ginyu does, because you need Ginyu Force units, which easying both the sidebound units was a very good idea. But then you're quite limited if you don't have those units. And yes, the same thing can be said for Kale and Caulifla, but there are way more options. And then not only that as well, because that's quite a heavy restriction on the passive to get an additional super, usually that's where Dokkan decides to be generous and goes, well, here you go, here's a guaranteed additional. You know, you're a stacker, here's a guaranteed additional. We need you to stack. Kale and Caulifla's additional is guaranteed if there is a Universe Survival Saga category ally or enemy. And then they have their built-in one, which I think is 50% chance as well, which has no condition whatsoever. So Ginyu has the same thing, but then when it comes to his conditional additional, he has no guarantee. It's another 50% chance. And I mean, for a unit that stacks 30% attack and defense, sorry, 30% defense, and then of course 30% attack for one turn, Kale and Caulifla do what, 50? On both. Which is why I really don't understand why they kind of held back on Ginyu and made him more restrictive than Kale and Caulifla. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Especially when Ginyu Force and the categories you're going to be running Ginyu on are a lot worse off compared to Kale and Caulifla. It doesn't make sense. So even though we did stack, what, 2-3 times, Ginyu is on a 463k defense. We do have a little bit less support right now. I mean, we will get it active once these guys do super attack. But this is what I mean. To get that, you know, SAFX support with Jason Berta, and I said this when we went through their details, you need Jason Berta to be in slot 1 because it only lasts for the turn, which isn't a bad idea because they do get a lot of dodge chance. But it's a bit risky. So we'll leave it like this right now. I mean, Recruitment Gold I do need to build up. And then for one turn from entry, or when HP is 70% or more, at the start of turn, Ginyu does get 30% chance to crit and damage reduction. So that first turn where he appeared, he did have a total of about 50% damage reduction, which is quite nice early on considering he's a stacker, and that's when he's going to be his most vulnerable. So that's everything Ginyu does in base. Let's quickly go through Jason Berta. So they do raise attack and defense by 30% on super. Of course, the main thing being, which we've already gone through, they do raise all allies attack and defense by 20% for one turn. They also start the turn with 200% attack and defense. They launch an additional attack. There's a 50% chance to become a super attack. They have a base 70% chance to evade. Space Traveling Warriors or Special Pose category allies key +3, 40% attack and defense. Then for every attack performed, there's that 50. There is that 50. For every attack performed, they do get 50% attack and defense up to 200%. So that's only 4 attacks. 4 attacks, not even supers, just attacks. Then when receiving an attack, they do get an extra 10% chance to dodge temporarily. And then when there is an ally whose name includes Ginyu attacking in the same turn, they get another 10% chance to evade before receiving an attack. So of course, they work really, really well with Ginyu, naturally. These 3 units, the Dokkan Fest Ginyu and the 2 sideband units, were made to literally work well together. They were made literally to be ran together, so it does make sense. And then all allies, 30% attack and defense for 2 turns as well, if there is a Ginyu ally attacking in the same turn. So one thing Jason Berta that do great are 2 things. One, the support. The total amount of support you can potentially give to Space Traveling Warriors and Special Pose in total, but mainly Ginyu, is 20% from the SA effect, which again, you do kind of need to have either them in slot 2, Ginyu in slot 3, which you don't really want to do because why do you want to stack a floating? Or if you can, take the risk and have them in slot 1, Ginyu in slot 2 to get that. You then have their base Space Traveling Warriors or Special Pose support, which takes up to key +3 attack and defense of 60%. Then you also have, as long as Ginyu's attacking in the same turn, another 30% for 2 turns, taking your total support from Jason Berta alone to key +3, attack and defense by 90%. If you then combine that with Ginyu support for Ginyu Force units are going to be picking up, like, for example, another Ginyu friend, but Ginyu Force units will be getting a total of 150% attack and defense, which is kind of crazy. So the combined support is pretty mad. So for a couple hits, Recruitment Gold are already up to 598k defense, or attack stat, and 434k defense. Ginyu's are only up to 474k. See, this is what I mean. If you're going to have a conditional additional on a stacker, you need to make it so that conditional one, that one where you're building your team around to help that unit, you need to make that guaranteed. Like, you really need to make that guaranteed. Or in this case with Ginyu, there's multiple options. You either make that one guaranteed, you make the just standard built-in non-conditional one at 70% chance, or you add another additional in there as well, because he's only stacking 30% defense. I said, whereas Kalen Caulifla, for example, who literally was the last EZA to come out, stacked 50 on both. And they have a guaranteed one that is conditional and a 50% chance one built in. Now, as I said before, me having Ginyu at 55% is also a factor. It's not helping him too much. I get that. But it really does feel like they went crazy with Kalen Caulifla, went, oh my god, they're kind of crazy, and then just decided to just dial it back. Which is really weird, because it's not even like Kalen Caulifla were broken. They were really good, but it's not like they were broken. Like, Ginyu and Kalen Caulifla are very similar units, and not only do they stack, as I said, they have conditional additionals, they have a built-in additional. They're highly dependent on that being a part of their kit. The only difference is Kalen Caulifla have dodge, Ginyu has damage reduction, and even then, he doesn't have permanent 50% damage reduction. That is also conditional. Ginyu should have had 50% defense stacks, a guaranteed additional for the condition of Ginyu Force, and then had a base 50. As I said, just take a page out of Kalen Caulifla's book and attach that to Ginyu, and Ginyu's stacking would have been so much better. Because again, it's not like he's stacking both here. He's only stacking one. He's just stacking defense, not both attack and defense. So it really does hurt him. Although Jason Berta up to a 903k attack defense stat with all of that dodge. That's kind of crazy. So fair play to them. They are actually really good. Both sidebanner EZAs are very, very good. It's Ginyu who looks a bit shaky. Dodge. Please. Thank you. Like, Jason Berta look amazing. Like, they're not here to do damage, but the 13 mil they're currently putting out right now, not bad. The amount of dodge chance and support they give is amazing. The amount of support they're giving is actually ridiculous. So they're a big help to Ginyu. I know they kind of always were, but at one point, Ginyu was the best Dokkan Fest in the game. His EZA not looking the same, I'll be honest. But Recruitment Goldo on super attack, they greatly raise attack and defense by 50%. They also start the turn with 200% attack and defense. They have 30% damage reduction, 70% chance to guard, and they will seal the attacked enemy super attack, of course, where you can make the most of that. After guard is activated, they get 100% defense. They'll also launch an additional attack. There's a 50% chance to become a super attack. Then when attacking with 12 or more ki, they do get 50% attack and defense. And then for every attack received, which is probably built up by now, they do get 100% attack and defense, which goes up by 20% each time. Then when there's an ally whose name includes Ginyu attacking in the same turn, you do have guaranteed guard, 30% damage reduction before attacking, and stuns the attacked enemy. Of course, the stun, where you can make the most of it. So just putting Recruitment Goldo in slot 1 next to a Ginyu, you're looking at a total of 60% damage reduction and guard. So again, the sidebanner EZAs, they're really good. Really, really good. Very good units for not only a slot 1 option Recruitment Goldo, as long as there's a Ginyu, but again, naturally you're going to run these units together. But then you've got Jason Berta with the dodge, great slot 3 unit, ton of support for not only Ginyu, but other members of the team as well. But mainly Ginyu. Like, they offer a lot for the team. It's just a shame how kind of weak Ginyu is. And I don't mean that by attack output, but just look at his defense. We're only on 587k. We're on turn 7. Can you imagine if we were rocking out against Blue Goku in Red Zone right now? I think Ginyu would probably get you killed. Because of how fast Goku builds up. Like, he builds up so quickly. Ginyu, on the other hand, not so much. Now, is Recruitment Goldo going to be a perfect slot 1 unit just by taking over 300k there? Probably not. But nonetheless, they still look quite solid as a slot 1 option, especially when you factor in all the support they can also get on top of it. I mean, damage-wise, Ginyu starts off in a pretty solid spot. But defensively, the stack is so slow. So slow. Like, how are we only... We're not even on 600k yet, and as I said, we're on turn 7. It's like Dokkan gave all the attention to the 2 side easy A's, and then Ginyu they kind of held back a little bit on, which again just doesn't make sense to me when you just deep the fact that Kale and Cleefler came before him, and they're very similar in how their passives function, apart from Kale and Cleefler having dodge and Ginyu having damage reduction. And it just feels like they just dialed it all back. I thought that would probably happen, but we're back. We do have the active skill ready. The body changes up and running, which of course is active from the 4th turn, and as long as your HP is at 70% or below, which we've got to. I don't think Ginyu is stacked as much as he did last time. Actually, tell a lie, he has 827k defense. That is a lot better. We've got better with additionals, but only 827k. It's a bit low. It's a bit low, but nonetheless, we're going to pop the active. I haven't actually seen this in a while, talking years. This is also going to be fresh for your boy. Let's pop this now.
That body of yours is pretty strong. Yes, and I think I'll take it. Change! We've made a trade. Your body is mine now.
And here we are, we're in Goku's body, so we no longer stack defense. As you saw there, we did get the 59% HP recovery, which is very, very nice for some team protection. So we're now stacking just 50% attack on super attack. No defense for the turn, just raw damage. So this is a type of active skill you probably want to hold on to a bit, but then also you want to stack his attack, so you don't want to hold on to it for too long. So we've dropped down to 668k defense, which I already know is just not enough. 449k attack stat. There is a super attack coming in slot 1, but I'm sure Raccoon and Goldo will be able to deal with it. So he is starting the turn now with key +1 attack and defense of 250. Launches an additional attack that has a 70% chance to become a super attack. Attacks are effective against all types. Not that it really matters here because we do have type advantage. And then damage reduction of 50%. So no conditional damage reduction, just flat 50, which is good. Then when attacking, he does get 150 attack, 50% chance to crit, and a 70% chance of an additional super. No matter what, they do not want to give Ginyu a guaranteed super attack, and I really don't know why. But the 270% chances, considering there isn't really any conditions on them, is actually pretty good. That is pretty nice. And there is a basic. Can we get an additional super? Yes, 12.3. Again, a little low, but at least we are stacking 50% attack on super now rather than 30. Then when receiving an attack, Ginyu does get 150 defense. He also now has a 50% chance to dodge with 50% damage reduction, which is quite nice. And then wherever you stacked his defense too. So pretty good defensive utility if I do say so myself. However, as we've seen, you don't stack that much defense in the kind of time you have. Like, you just don't stack defense quick enough. So I think if he could stack more or quicker or both, then sure. Because we could have well over 1 million defense right now with 50% damage reduction and 50% chance to dodge. And I'd be happy with that. We're on 600 and something K and we get no defense from super attack at all. The only defense we get is start a turn, which we've seen just over 600k defense, and the 150 from being hit. Then when there's an ally's name includes Jace on the team, Ginyu does have the Scouter, which is one of the best abilities to have in the whole of Dokkan. So what's really annoying with Ginyu is he has a lot of upsides. a lot of upsides. You know, you've got the support in base, the scouter here works really well. The two-side EZAs as a collective, as a whole, they work really, really well, and that takes up half your team. And as I said, they do quite a lot for the team as a whole. You know, Jason Burt, a ton of support. Ginyu in base, support. Loads of support floating around the team. You know, Rakuman Goldo, slot 1 option. Jason Burt have a ton of dodge. Ginyu has a scouter when you transform him. HP recovery when you do the body swap. It's all there. But because it seems like they held back on Ginyu so much, it just... Ginyu is lacking a bit. He really is. Like, he really is lacking. And we actually may die here, I'm not gonna lie. I did want to get Jason better on the rotation so we could get the scouter up, but I guess it's not really needed. It would just be nice to have it. But one thing's for certain. Eee, where's the dodge? Where is the dodge? If we die, we die. Okay, there's the dodge. But one thing's for certain. Ginyu's post-transformation, after the body swap, after the body change, is really nice. As I said, that defensive utility, you got the 50% damage reduction and dodge, with the idea that you're consistently going to be stacking up 50% attack every time you super attack. It's nice. It could amount to quite a bit of good damage output with, as I said, pretty decent defensive utility. But it just really does feel a little lackluster. It does feel like Dokkan did hold back on Ginyu's EZA. Even though we literally had such a similar EZA not long ago, like a few weeks back. I don't think we're even at a full month yet with Kale and Cauliflower. And they were so much better than Ginyu is right now. So much better. I mean, where's he in terms of attack stat right now? 898k. It's almost like kind of worth just letting Ginyu just continuously stack in base so you can build up as much defense as possible and then use the active skill near the very end, even though you kind of miss out on a ton of offensive stacking with Ginyu. I think I've seen enough. I think I have seen enough, even though we're probably going to die in a minute anyway. But starting from best out of the 3 ZAs, definitely Jason Bell. You know, all of that dodge chance is honestly amazing. You know, you're almost looking at guaranteed dodge with all the conditions fulfilled. A ton of support, really good for the team. And you know what? 13-14 million attack stat with a built-in additional isn't too bad damage output, mainly for a support unit. Rakuman Goldo is a slot 1 option. Actually better than I thought they would be. They're pretty good. Do I think they could hold out in the most difficult stages? Maybe not as you would want them to, but I think they do a pretty solid job. You know, all that damage reduction, the guard with the Ginyu, it's a lot of great defensive utility, and that's pretty much all you want for them. Especially after they super attack and they get the attack and defense raise on super and the extra one from the additional. And then last, and in this case, kind of least, we have Ginyu. As I said, it really does feel like Dokkan held back on this EZA after putting out such an amazing EZA with Kale and Cauliflower, who are so similar. Don't get me wrong. The support Ginyu gives out, really nice. The amount of damage reduction you can have in base for 1 turn, really nice when he's at his most vulnerable. The possibility you can get to where stacking is good, but they held back. 50% chance of an additional super is fine, but you need more elsewhere. And that conditional additional, as long as there's a Ginyu Force category ally on the team, Kale and Cauliflower got a guaranteed one for that when it comes to Universe Survival Saga category ally or enemy. This is even more restrictive, and you kept it at 50%. It needed to be at least 70, but should have been guaranteed, especially on a stacker. And especially when Ginyu doesn't stack attack and defense like Kale and Cauliflower, and is only stacking defense by 30%, not even 50. So there needed to be some change there, like a guaranteed additional, more defense on the stack, or maybe attack and defense. Something. There needed to be something. Then when you transform him, the HP recovery is nice for some team protection. The stacking by 50% attack is good. It's fine. Kefla had that on Kale and Cauliflower. And the 270% chance of an additional super is also fine. But the fact is, when you use the active skill, only now are you stacking attack. You kind of have some some stats to catch up on. And even by the time you use the body swap, it almost feels not worth it, because you wouldn't have stacked up anywhere near enough defense to then body swap him. And it kind of feels more worth just leaving Ginyu in base. Like, put it this way, if base Ginyu stacked attack as well as defense, I'd probably never see the reason to actually use his active skill at this point, apart from some HP recovery, or maybe to get that defensive utility, which to me is one of the better parts of him transformed, which is 50% damage reduction and 50% chance to dodge. But don't forget, we're still partially in a dodge cancelling meta, so some point you're actually going to lose that. Let's not forget that. And then, of course, having the Scouter, one of the best abilities in the game, as long as you have a Jace next to you, I'm completely fine with that. I said there are some good points, but unfortunately there are too many downsides to this Ginyu EZA, and it's a shame, because at one point he was one of the best units in the game, or best Dokkan Fest in the game. He was 1 or 2, just depends on who you ask. And now, his EZA really does feel like a fumble. Really does feel like a fumble, but do let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh, but I feel like they held back and they have fumbled Ginyu's EZA. The 2 side EZAs though, amazing. Really, really good job. But let me know your thoughts. I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care, have a great day, and peace.